Hello, I'm Charles Kovess, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this week's episode of the Charles Kovess Show, whether you're watching on Rumble or YouTube or listening via one of the many podcasting channels. This is episode 225, and this month marks the 5th anniversary of the commencement of this show, inspired by the outrageous lockdowns imposed by governments in March of 2020. So over the course of 5 years, I've done 225 shows. That strikes me as an average of 45 shows a year. Not bad. Not even one interview amongst them. All just like this one. Although I have been on radio for many programs and many interview programs. In the context of that 5-year anniversary, I urge you to have a look at the 31-minute compilation video of what's happened over those 5 years and the many stories, lies, mistruths that have been promulgated by mainstream media, by governments from all around the world. We'll put the link into the show notes. In this show, I'll discuss a few current issues and perhaps give you some resources. The show notes give you the links to the foundational principles of this show and a bit of background about me, and also links to our websites kovess.com and charleskovess.com. And in the latter website, you can get the details of the Self-Awareness and Passion Quest. And that is a one-on-one executive coaching process. It helps particularly business leaders to be more effective leaders. It's work I've been doing for the last 31 years since I left my legal career. The Self-Awareness and Passion Quest principles are designed to help you, in the context of the issues I discuss, live your life on your terms. And remember my definition of passion. It's a source of unlimited energy from your soul, your spirit, your heart that enables you to generate extraordinary results. Extraordinary, above ordinary, because when you're passionate, you are definitely above ordinary. Passion, a source of unlimited energy. And when you have unlimited energy, your ability to add value goes through the roof. Don't forget to subscribe to the show. It won't cost you anything except the risk of greater passion, greater awareness, and a greater enjoyment of your life. So let's go with this week's topic, which is truth versus comfort. And it is inspired by the announcement in the last day or so by the Australian Prime Minister of a federal election. And the big question in elections in Australia, in America, in many countries around the world is the question of whether a government should be run under a deficit of funding or a surplus of funding. Big difference in attitude, isn't it? If deficits don't matter, just keep spending, say the governments, because people will vote for us. Or should governments be well controlled? Should they spray the money? Should they not spray money? Have a surplus, minimise taxation, so that people could make their own decisions versus the government making all of the decisions, taking the money. It's a big philosophical question. Should you live beyond your means or not? What's the different principles that apply to a government living beyond its revenue and a household living beyond its revenue? In Australia, there are basically 3 main choices. You can choose between the Liberal National Party, which is the Conservative coalition, or between the left-wing coalition of the Labor Party and the Greens Party. Or the third choice is to vote for independence, or what I call the newly emerging freedom parties. There's also a One Nation party that's been around a long time, led by Pauline Hanson. So that's the third type of choice. And it's an interesting question whether you think it's better that government is run by a one party, or whether government should be, or parliament should be, consisting of many parties who come into a loose coalition. That's another philosophical question. Do you vote for independents or smaller parties and then hope that they will, a bit like the upper house in the Senate in Australia, where the government has to haggle with what are called crossbenchers? So these elections that we have regularly in democracies lead us to make a choice. And the choice that I'm focusing on today is truth versus comfort. We have to choose between deficit spending and surplus spending. In other words, if your philosophy is surplus, you're going to spend less. And the big question for each one of us is, do you value truth more than being comfortable? Are you willing to fight for what you believe to be true, or are you going to take the comfortable way, the easy way? Well, here's the problem in Australia. More than 50% of Australian adults, are receiving government funding. And so if you are a majority of Australians receiving government funding or benefiting from government funding, the question is, that's pretty comfortable to keep getting that income. What's the price what's the truth about what that means to a country? You might go, how can it be over 50%? Well, public servants make up some 30% of the workforce. There are all of the people on disability pensions under the National Disability Insurance Scheme, and that number is rising dramatically. The cost of that NDIS, like any government benefit people want to get into, receiving government handouts, age pensioners, disability pensioners, then the first responders, police, firemen, ambulance, the military, and then companies that are retained by government. Give you one simple example of that. Companies that maintain the infrastructure, the roads infrastructure. Well, many times it's not the government doing that. The government receives taxpayer money and then gives it to private companies who are spending government money. So I think it's fair to say that if you're on the government payroll, if you're receiving money from government, it's really hard to make a decision. Gosh, the truth is we can't keep spending beyond the nation's means. And so the choice is going to be, I'm going to choose the Labor Greens because they're more likely to spend money. They're more likely to run at a deficit. And the recent budget they've announced is showing a huge deficit. The American economy, the American government, the $37 trillion in debt that it owns, clearly been running on deficits. Many countries run on deficits. And then you go, well, why shouldn't it run on deficits? Because, the countries aren't disappearing. Greece was a basket case. We might talk about what the implication is of running at a deficit. Venezuela ran on huge deficits, and the only information I get about Venezuela from people who used to live there is it is a disaster zone. We don't get much reporting on what it's like on the ground in Venezuela. For example, I wonder if they get good coffee like I do, that I love drinking. You see, so there's this battle going on inside us. The truth is we shouldn't be as a nation living beyond our means because it impacts on our children into the future. But gosh, I'm comfortable now. I had this question arose with barristers that I've dealt with over the years when I was a lawyer. They would start doing work in the workers' compensation jurisdiction. It was boring, but it was great money. It was like a sausage machine. You didn't have to work hard, didn't have to think hard. But once you were on there, and after a few years of getting this nice solid income and doing workers' compensation, many of them told me it was really hard to get off that sugar drip of easy money. I think it's clear, my truth is that ongoing deficit spending in the medium to long term spells disaster for a nation. That's what I think. That's what I believe. I've done a lot of reading on this topic. It'll be disastrous for your children if they're young, or for your grandchildren, or for your great-grandchildren. My mother has 13 great-grandchildren. So this question of what is more important, to act in, to choose truth or to be comfortable. I want to give you 9 practical examples of this truth versus comfort decision that many of us have to make, so that you, when you're making your decisions in your day-to-day life, you are questioning yourself. Am I acting in accordance with truth, in accordance with true principles, in accordance with the truth that might be my philosophy, or am I taking the comfortable route? And I could spend a show on each one of these 9, but I won't. I'll just run through them quickly so that it reminds you of how common this paradox is of making this choice. So, first example, in the workplace. If you have lazy colleagues, and talking about public servants, I've heard some horror stories, even the last couple of months, of how unsafe it is to speak the truth in a workplace when there are colleagues who are absolutely, it's not obvious, it's not clear at all what value they're adding. They're getting big money, $70, $80, $90, $100,000 a year, essentially taking up space. And so in the workplace, a fellow public servant who says, no, we should not be wasting money. If that workplace colleague speaks up to the manager and says, listen, this person is not doing anything, or speaks up to his colleague and says, what are you doing here? Well, I'm being paid for doing nothing, but I'm happy to stay here doing nothing. Okay, it's comfortable not to say anything. Speaking the truth is good for the nation, and this is part of the whistleblower challenge. Whistleblowers speak up, and then the whistleblowers get into trouble. That's example 1. Example number 2. US aid that has been dismantled by the Trump administration. The horror stories of waste, of fraud, of corruption coming out about the activities of USAID shows how many public servants on the government tit in America knew this stuff was nonsense, was a waste, was a fraud, was corrupt, but they were comfortable. They were being paid billions of dollars going into this organization. And what is apparent is that if $10 million is given to a particular project, the decision makers and there's people who are involved in the administration, their hands, money coming into their back pockets. There are politicians in America and Australia who've become incredibly wealthy while being politicians. And the money flow from organizations like USAID shows how many people stayed in the comfort zone rather than the truth of calling out the bullshit, of the crap, of the nonsense. It was much more comfortable not to call it out. The third example is when businesses fail to serve their customers. The customer says you didn't do a good job, and the business doesn't speak the truth. It's comfortable. No, they deny it, don't want to spend any money. And this is a philosophical decision for the business, because businesses say, our customers are so important, but that's not actually true. What's most important to most businesses, which I think is wrong, is no, whatever happens, don't admit to the customer the truth that you failed them. Save the money, fight the customer, ignore the customer. And these days, particularly with online purchases, I've been helping one of my friends deal with a problem of an online purchase, a $2,000 purchase, and we've sorted it out, fortunately. But gosh, you deal online, buy expensive stuff. If it goes wrong, who is accountable? Who can you follow up? And if you pursue the supplier, they go, nothing to do with us. And they ignore you. You're gaslit with silence. Crickets, as they say in the classics. The fourth example is truth versus comfort in deciding whether to allow your children to stay on their electronic games, on their iPads, on their iPhones. The truth is it's bad for them to be on it too much, to be on these devices too much. But it's comfortable, isn't it? I've got 5 children. I've raised 5 children. The truth is versus the comfort is. The comfortable decision for most parents who can't cope with the pressures of life, of financial pressures, they go, I'll let my kids stay on that. Down the track, medium term, long term, it's making those children significantly less competent. The 5th example is staying in a loveless marriage. Not speaking the truth and saying, I've got to get out of this, and speaking the truth. No, stay in unhappy comfort zone. The 6th is staying in a shitty job, a job that you hate, a job that makes you unhappy, a job that means you can't relate passionately to the people that you love for the comfort of the income stream. The 7th example is people dying suddenly. You go to a funeral, someone's died suddenly. Do you stay silent or do you speak up about the truth that people are dying suddenly because of what's happened over the last 5 years and what's been put into their bodies, the bioweapons that have been put into their bodies? Do you stay silent because it's comfortable, or do you speak the truth? The 8th example is in a relationship, in a workplace, in any environment, in your family. If you are upset, significantly upset by something, and you don't speak the truth about that upset, because if you do, you know it's going to cause conflict. However, this upset, this resentment stays in your body, and you pay a big price by not speaking the truth, and you do it for short-term comfort because you don't want the conflict. We make this decision, well, I'm not going to raise that, or you say to yourself, I shouldn't be upset, but then it causes medium to long-term problems for you. Speaking truth, as a beautiful passage in chapter 8 of the Gospel of John says, the truth shall set you free. And the last one, and I can do many more examples, but leadership qualities, leadership behaviours in companies that kill passion. It's one of the reasons why I left my legal career, because the evidence that I've accumulated over the last 31 years is that the vast majority of people in workplaces are not passionate, but they start off being passionate, and it's bad management, it's bad leadership that kills passion. So leaders talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And so the fraud that is perpetrated on many, many workers who thought they were joining a particular type of workplace, and then they, after 3 to 6 months, they go, this is crap. And then you go, well, what's the choice that the leaders made? Because leaders create this environment where you think you're joining a workplace that's a particular type, and it's not, because the leaders are not choosing the truth. They know what's going to make a great workplace, but they choose the comfort. Now, what's the comfort that these business leaders choose? They choose to keep their board of directors happy because they want the profits to be high. Why? Because it makes the board look good, and the CEO is comfortable in keeping his job, and he's killing the passion of large numbers of people. I say more than 80% of Australians, more than 80% of Americans are not passionate about their work, and it's because leaders are choosing comfort and not truth. The truth about what makes a company able to be sustainable and profitable and valuable in the medium to long term. These leaders are making short-term decisions for their own comfort. I call out those leaders. The quality of leadership in most businesses, I say, is crap. And again, how do I know? Because the levels of passion of their employees is very low. So where that leads to is, I urge you to be consciously aware of your decision-making, of the choices you make, of the choice you make in an election. Are you choosing truth or comfort? And this is all part of the self-awareness journey. What's the values that guide your choices? Before I close, I want to note that I ran a follow-up Zoom webinar for the people who attended the Hemp Horizons conference in Ireland. I recorded that. It was a Zoom meeting. If you would like a link to that recording, please let me know. We will put the website link into the show notes. It's hemphorizons.org, where you can see pictures of that hemp conference, but there's also some great resources, the presentations that were made on that hemp conference in Ireland. And I want you all to understand why industrial hemp is so important. It is going to be a massive explosion in hemp over the next 5 to 10 years. I can see this so clearly, my vision for this industry. It's going to be so big because hemp solves so many problems. It solves environmental problems. It solves circular economy problems. It solves health problems. It's going to be huge. So get onto the hemp train. A whole new term that one of my viewers pointed out to me, MAHA, is not Make America Healthy Again. Make Australia hemp aware. Make America hemp aware. Industrial hemp is going to play a massive role, a massive beneficial role in humanity's future. That's why I'm excited about it. Check out hemphorizons.org and the company of which I'm also managing director, textilecomposite.industries. We'll put that into the chat as well. And this is not hemp that I'm drinking, but coffee. Although all of you should be eating hemp seeds and hemp seed oil because your body needs cannabis. So, I hope today's show makes a beneficial difference to your life, a life that I believe is meant to be all that you are capable of making of it. And harnessing your passion is the great way to do that. If you're new to the show, click on the foundational principles for the show and further background about me. Don't forget to subscribe and share the show with your friends, with your work colleagues. Finally, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. Decide when you're going to speak truth or when you're going to take the easy way. Embrace the challenge that life gives us. Embrace the gift that life is. And may you become ever more self-aware as you live life on your terms. Have a great week. See you next week. Bye-bye.